Welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you guys for being here. You could have been any place on the planet, but you chose to be here today. And we are so thankful that you're here. Those that are in attendance and those that will catch us on the replay and those that are just in the atmosphere, just listening and doing whatever you're doing on this Sunday to get ready for the work week coming up. Well, today we got something special, man. Today we have something special. And I really don't do too many interviews. You know, I think on this channel, altogether, I think I've done 4, right? And I think I've done 3. This will be my 4th. So, you know, you got to be a special person for me to do an interview with you because, you know, we be doing work. We be pushing out this information. So today is a personal friend of mine. He's a 5-time author, an entrepreneur, a community activist. There's so much I can say about this brother. He's in it for the children, man, and for the adults. He talks about mental illness. He talks about depression. He talks about mental health. He talks about, you know, the state of being in our community. It's so important that we understand that, you know, when he goes around and speaks at different forums, he talks about that the only way out of the hood, be it black or white, it's not just basketball or any of these things, right? He has a creative writing course that we're going to talk about. This brother has so many different things for the community, for the children, for adults also. He has so many different things going on. So we're going to bring my brother up. His name is Kevin Blaize. What's the deal, my G?
Thank you for having me, bro. Thank you very much for taking the time out. I really appreciate it. Man, everything's good on my end. How about you?
I'm blessed, man. The Lord gave me another day to get it right, so I'll do my best to get it right. But how you doing, man? How's the family? Everyone good?
Everybody's good, man. Thank the Lord, man. You know, everybody is good.
Man, 5 times author, brother. 5 books.
Yeah. I've been working. I'm about to release my 6th, and I'm in the middle of the 7th book, and then I just started because the trilogy that we're going to talk about, 2 of the books are out yet. So I'm 2 chapters in on the 3rd one.
Wow,
so it's a lot of work going on.
And let's talk about it that you're self-published.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that because that's a lot of work. You don't have a big company behind you. You're doing this like, you know, when you and I spoke, you said you're doing it like Master P out
right.
the back of your trunk, and you know, you're in the grassroots. You're going to these different events, selling your books. So let me ask you this: where can they? Because you know, we're going to get into a conversation. We're going to talk about a lot. Where can they find your books at?
On my websites, www.dogsofthewild.com is for the trilogy and my coloring books, and then www.18-48.com is the home buyer's book.
All right. Okay. So we're going to be putting that up on the description, and I'll probably, when we have time, put that up on the ticker. So where do we start, man? How did you know that you were an author, man? When did that hit you? When did that bug hit you to the point where you said, I'm going to write about books, or I'm going to be able to write books, and the topics that you pick? Because you could talk about anything, but you chose to talk about the community. You chose to talk about mental illness. You chose to talk about home buying. Talk to me, brother.
Well, I love to read. I've always loved to read. I read a lot of books, and I had an idea that I was sitting on for a little bit. And I was reading this particular book. I'm not going to mention the name, but something seemed off about it. It was supposed to be a nonfiction book. And let's say we're in 2025, but it was from 400 years ago. I just felt it was a little too detailed. So I said, all right, let me put this book down because something was rubbing me the wrong way. And let me try this idea that I had. Once I started writing, my first book is Dogs of the Wild, book 1 in the series. Once I started writing, I realized that I was good. I couldn't stop. Like I didn't plot anything out. I didn't plan anything out. I had no idea that I was going to be an author. I just said, let me try it. And it's blossomed into something unimaginable.
Wow. That's awesome. And for those of you that want to go to his website to get the dogsofthewild.com, it's already up. It's on the ticker. So check that out. So how did you pick your topics, my G? How did you come up with, you know, mental illness, depression, when you could have talked about drug dealing? You could have talked about anything that all of these other authors are talking about. What inspired you to pick these certain topics?
Well, the fictional book was just my imagination. Everything came from my imagination. How I ended up writing the homebuyers book was by chance. I was looking for mentorship on how to get my fictional book out to the public because I had no idea what I was doing. I just knew the only thing I knew was that I had a good book one. So I signed up for this class. It was $997, call it $1,000. And I went into the class and I was the only one that had a creative writing fictional book. Everybody else's book was pain, upliftment, drugs, the run of the mill hood story. And I was the only one with a fictional book. So the class couldn't help me with the book that I had that I signed up for the class with, but it gave me the idea to do this home buyers book because one, I knew I had the experience with purchasing houses. I had experiences with losing houses. I used to do real estate. I knew about credit. So I said, just based off of me being in the class, it created a whole different option and opportunity for me, which is very important when I go and I talk to the students. You know, I let them know that they turn losses into options and opportunities. Don't just, I could have folded and said, I lost my $1,000, but I made something great over it and I made it back 10 times over with the home buyers book. You know, the home buyers book was actually my best selling book. The Dogs of the Wild has started picking up steam lately, but in the beginning, the home buyers book was the book that was really making a lot of noise. When it came to the book, which is not out yet, it's finished, it's in the editing phase, about Is Your Son Ready to Leave Home, where I talk about the mental health. My son was moving to Alaska, so that gave me, it was a personal book for me because a lot of our young men step out into the world and they don't know what to expect when they get out there. So I talk about the mental health because there's nothing wrong with seeking help. You know, I talk about experiences that they're going to have to face head on when they step out into that world on their own. So that's where the idea for the uh, "Is Your Son Ready to Leave Home" book came from. It was personal to me because I had my son that was leaving home, going to practically another world in Alaska.
Yeah. You know, we have a show that we call Testimony Friday where people take their testimonies and they share it with people, right? Because we don't know who's going through that tunnel we just came out of.
Right.
So for you to take what you were going through, the experiences that you were going through, and to put it into words and put it in a place where people can experience and learn from your mistakes, learn from where you made the left turn to the right turn. And the thing that really stands out to me that's important is that you're self-published, right? That you took the time to figure this out. But I want to read an excerpt from one of your books, right? And it says, every 13 minutes and 7 seconds, a man in the United States loses the battle in his head. One thing that is not taught to us men is that failure is a part of life. If they stop talking to you because you told them no, then so be it. You will eventually have your own family to take care of, and you need those assets that you have built up to come in handy for your future family. Talk to me a little bit about that, because I know that's personal. Talk to
Right.
me a little bit about that excerpt.
Well, those are actually several different excerpts. Like the first one gives the timing for when the men lose their battle in their mind. So that, in other words, is every 13, minutes, a man commits suicide. Then that's one excerpt from a chapter that's in the book, and it goes down. Each one is individually. So I got that stat from I don't remember off the top of my head the site that the account that's on Instagram, but it's a mental health and account that deals with suicide and the thoughts that men go through. Right? Men go through. So I put it in the book so that when people are reading, it's another reference that they can go and seek help from, because mental health is a very, very important issue. Um, your assets. I talk about, I had two different friends of mine wreck two of my cars in different situations, and none of them offered to pay for what they damaged. So now I'm stuck with my family in two different occasions with no car because I let somebody borrow my assets. So I'm trying to get the young men into the mindset of protecting what it is that they work for. Because in my situation, I already had a family, but if you're a young man, your family may not be here yet, but it's coming. So you need to protect what it is that you've built up, that you work for. You can't just be free given all the time, because you have to protect what it is that you have, and it's going to benefit you later on down the line. Um, can you read me? Can you read me another excerpt? I think you read
Absolutely.
four of them.
Yeah, absolutely I can.
Yeah.
One thing that is not taught to us men is that failure is a part of life.
Yeah, this is huge. I go into a lot of schools and I talk to students, and I talk to them about creative writing. I talk to them about life. I talk to them about failure. A lot of them think that they can't do certain things because they're not perfect. And I have to explain to them, you don't have to be perfect. The person that you see on these podcasts, on these radio shows, on television, they're not perfect. And they did not just wake up and get to the position at the end. They worked hard at it, and they had a lot of failures. Failure doesn't mean that the game is over. A famous quote that I have that I made for myself is, for entrepreneurs, no just means not over. You spell no and O.
Mm,
No
nice.
just means not over. But the youngsters aren't being told that failure is a part of life. When you quit, now it's over. But because you failed, that's just another opportunity for you to start over, keep going, go a different avenue, but it's not over. And nobody's telling them this. So I felt it's very important to focus on letting them know that failure and starting over is a part of the process.
Right.
Mhm.
We say here is failure. You're only a failure if you don't learn from your experience.
Right.
Right. If you learn from it, it becomes a life experience. It becomes something that you learn from it. Right. And that's awesome. You have one more excerpt that I want to read to you, and I want you to break it down for me. It says, struggle children is a real thing. Struggle children are when you have children at an early age and you are not ready for children financially.
Right.
Can you
Yeah,
break that
this this one is heavy, man. And I've gotten a lot of pushback from men because what people tend to do is they tend to make situations about themselves. If you look at the title of that book, it's talking about young men. So we're trying to put our young men into the best position possible. So one of the examples that I use is, a lot of times we get children at a young age and we're not financially ready for them. And we spend our best years struggling to try to take care of these children. Another example I use is child support. You have a young man that was put on child support at 22, then again at 32, then again at 45. And the first thing he does when he comes around a young man that's getting ready to step out into the world, he asks him, how many girls you got? Instead of asking him what's his 5-year plan, or what is he looking to do in the next 5 years, the first thing he wants to ask the guy, like, if this is the most important thing, is how many girls you got. And you just finished, you're still on your third go round of child support, yet the most important thing you can think to ask this young man is how many girls he has. And I'm trying to get us to understand that we need to change the narrative around these young men. We need to let them know that when they focus on themselves first and building their foundation, that they're going to be much better off, that they put in that work at a younger age. The women are still going to be there, but you set yourself back, child support. You set yourself back struggling to take care of this child because you weren't ready financially. So we can start to get the young men to say, all right, let me hold off on running behind and looking for a relationship, or let me hold off and chasing women, and let me set my foundation. We're going to be in a much better position. But some men get offended when you talk about the child support, and they want to let you know, oh, a lot of men are on child support wrongfully. That's not the point. We understand that. The point is that you're instilling in that young man that women is the most important thing for him to chase, because that's the first thing you want to ask him about.
Nice, bro. Nice. I was talking to you while I was on mute.
Oh,
So let me ask you a question. What is your mission as an author?
uh, the it's several different missions. The To me, which is my passion, is to one with my fictional book is to get my books into every school in the United States. Um, you have a lot of books that are part of curriculums. I want to do the same thing with my books. Two is I want to create creative writers everywhere that I go. I want to create an army of creative writers everywhere that I go, letting them know that they can do this kind of work. Three, I want to get my books to an animated movie. So the Dogs of the Wild series end goal is to get it to an animated movie. With the book, Is Your Son Ready to Leave Home? It's an awareness book. So with that book, I want to get the young men aware of obstacles and situations that they might not be familiar with. A popular part of the book that I really like is, you have friends that are jealous of you. Nobody told me growing up that there are going to be friends, that people that you consider friends, that are going to be jealous of you. So now if you're starting to talk about these topics to these young men at an earlier age, when it happens, they won't be caught off guard. They won't know what's going it won't be foreign to them what's happening, because they're aware that these kind of situations happen. So the Is Your Son Ready to Leave Home is an awareness book. So I want to raise awareness with that book. With the home buyers book, I just want us to understand that information is power. When you have information, now you can make the right moves. I don't want people going into the bank and the first time they're hearing the terms for purchasing a house is when they sit down in the bank. I want them to already be prepared when they go into the bank. So when they hear something that doesn't sound right, they can say, wait a minute, what about this? Or hold on, I don't want to do it that way. I want to do it this way. So that's a preparedness, an awareness, and an option and opportunity book with the fictional writing. So it's a lot of avenues that I have going on with my writings.
So it sounds like, along with you being an author, you having a course for creative writing to, push that narrative that the only way to get out of the hood is not through basketball, selling drugs, or football. You can write, and through that creative writing, doctors, meant, you become a lawyer, whatever it is. The world is as small as you make it.
Right.
Um, you made a statement that I want to come back to. You talked about rejection. You talked about rejection. Um, Talk to me about how you talk to these young men in depth, and young women in depth, when you go to these schools, about how to handle rejection.
A rejection is a part of life. If everybody agrees with you and everything just goes smooth all the time, something's wrong. You know, it's natural for things not to go your way. It's natural for you to be told no. It's natural for you to have to navigate a different plan than what you initially started out at. A perfect example is me with my books. I had an idea that I was just going to be selling this fictional book. I went into this course. I ended up making a help book with the home buyers book, and that took off more than my fictional writing in the beginning. So it's not always the plan that you have set in front of you. God has a path of his own for you, and you have to be able to understand that and accept it. It's not always what you have mapped out. So rejection is not always a bad thing. It builds character, and it helps you work on where you might have not been as strong as you thought. So rejection can actually be a positive thing. It's not always looked at as something negative. The cliche, when one door closes, another one opens. I flipped it to, options and opportunities. That's what makes the world go round. You
Mm,
have to create options. You have and when you have options and opportunities, you're setting yourself up to be in a much better position.
okay. Let me ask you this. Um, because this right here, I wanted to get your thoughts on. creative writing, how has that helped you mentally? Like, because um, writing is so deep
Mhm.
because you have to put your feelings on paper, you have to think about what you're writing, and then you have to read it. How did that help you mentally going through, because you said that you were, you bought houses, you lost houses, your people's had crashed your car and now you're left with no car, but yet you have to get your family from point A to point B. How did writing help you deal with these things mentally?
That's a great question. And I think that the different types of writing that you do helps you differently. Like with my creative writing, I love to go back and read what I've written after I finished the project. Book one of mine, I've read it over 7 times, and every time I've read it, I felt very, very pleased because I know what type of reading that I like. So when I'm writing creatively, I put on music and I just write nonstop. It's kind of weird. Like I have the music playing, but I'm not listening to the music and I'm just writing. So it relaxes me a lot. When I was doing the Is Your Son Ready to Leave Home, I talked a lot about my personal experiences. So it was kind of therapeutic for me to be writing it out because, there's a lot of battles that you go through in your head and you're thinking, well, maybe I was the one that was the issue. Maybe I could have did this better. But in me writing that book, I realized that nah, there's some things that people around you do to you that you have to acknowledge. No matter how much you love someone, there's a point where you have to clip it. It has to get clipped. Not everybody can come along for the ride. And in me writing that Is Your Son Ready to Leave Home, it opened up a lot of what's the word I'm looking for? It gave me a lot of vision. I saw things very clearly after I put that book together. The Home
Mm,
Buyers book. That book I was very proud of because it's helpful to people.
okay.
We have a lot of people that would like to buy houses and they don't know the first step. I call that book simple but powerful because it's a very simple read, a lot of powerful information. And I've had people that have purchased their house based off of the book 18 to 48 and Still No House. I've had people, a husband and wife, that actually followed the step by step. And I'm supposed to do a YouTube video with them about it. I just haven't gotten around to it. But so my
Okay.
different writings help me in different ways. But it's definitely a tool that you can use to make you feel better. There's people that express themselves very, very deeply in their writing, like you said. So there's different avenues and different results for my different writings.
It's very therapeutic,
Right.
because again, you know, you get to put what you're feeling on paper, opposed to taking that aggression or that anger out on the person or persons that
Right.
you have that aggression with, right? We have a question from Aunt T Biz, that's my G. He says, how do you help young men to understand that sometimes quick success can be followed by failure and vice versa?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. Because especially in today's time, a lot of people think that you don't have to put in the work. You
Mm,
know, Putting in the work is not going to change. Those that are willing to put in the work are the ones that are going to be successful. Nothing happens overnight. Um, whether it is you're doing good or bad, if you're putting in the work, it's going to happen. But if you're not putting in the work, you're not laying a foundation, it's gonna collapse on you. And a perfect example that I like to use is sports, because so many of our young men are into sports. Those basketball players have been playing since 8 years old.
hmm
They didn't wake up and join the NBA. They've been putting in the work. So that's an analogy that I can use to young men for them to be able to relate. They start in AAU games. They left regular public schools and went to private schools. They had personal coaches. They started working on their diets. And these things started at a very, very young age. They put in the work. So
Discipline.
yeah, discipline. If you think you're gonna wake up at 18 and make a quick flip. It's not going to work that way, you know? So that's one way that I like to show the young men that you have to put in the work in order to be successful. Nobody wakes up overnight and becomes an overnight success. A lot of people who do become overnight success stories are people that play lottery, and the majority of them lose their money.
That's a good point. We say the same thing here too, that, especially when young men and young women get into relationships, right? You don't learn to be a wife when you're a wife.
Mm.
You don't learn to be a husband when you're a husband. And I'm glad you pull out that NBA, because that's the example we use all the time. You don't get into the NBA and be a basketball player. The foundation and the discipline had to be there.
Mm-hmm.
These cats take time learning muscle memory,
right.
Doing the same thing. When you write your book, and you could take me through the process, especially let's talk about with the house, the mistakes that you made, you had to learn from them.
Right.
You had to dictate, where did I make this mistake? And what you're doing is you're giving them a blueprint so that they don't make the same mistakes that you made. Right. So talk on that a little bit.
And it's important because a lot of people are ashamed to say where they've messed up, and they'll watch people close to them make the same mistakes that they made and wouldn't say a word. You have a lot of elders that purchase houses and are embarrassed of how they got taken advantage of. So with me writing that book, I had no problem putting everything that I did that was wrong, because I had no idea what I was doing, So with me not knowing what I was doing and making those mistakes, it was a learning experience. And now I can share that experience that I had with others so they don't make the same mistakes. And then I also put mistakes of people that I know. I didn't use their name, I just let them know that this is a situation that happened. One that was that I talk about in the book is a friend that actually, this one was a family member where they weren't allowed to use their first time home buyer's credit. And they just told them that they weren't allowed to use it. Now, if you know that you're supposed to get a first time home buyer's credit, you're able to fight that and say, why am I not able to do this? So they made them pay 20% when they were only supposed to pay 3 to 3.5% on their first time home purchase. But if nobody talks to you about this, one, you're not going to know that it's available to you. And two, you don't tell anybody. I found out about that 20 years later after it happened to this family member, that happened to them, because we're embarrassed when we realize that, wait a minute, I got taken advantage of. But there's nothing to be embarrassed about, man. If you don't know, you can't do any better. But once you learn, the embarrassment is not sharing what you've learned so that others keep doing the same thing. That's when you should be embarrassed.
Absolutely. So, okay. So let me ask you this, not giving too much, because we want the people to buy your books. Right. And those of you who asked for the titles, the books are in the ticker. One is, you can go get The Dogs of the Wild at www.com, dogsofthewild.com. You can also get his other books, Is Your Son Ready to Leave Home?
Well, Is Your Son Ready to Leave Home hasn't launched yet. I'm hoping to launch it. Yeah, I'm hoping to launch that before the summertime. It's in the final editing stages. But that one is going to be available on the 18-48.com website as well. So that one will be on that.
18-48.
Yeah.
18-48. And you have the last Blacks in America, 18 to 48 years old and still no home. And Dogs of the Wild, it's a trilogy.
Yeah, Dogs of the Wild is a trilogy.
Yeah, it's a trilogy, and I'll be putting in the next website in a second. Let me ask you a question, man. What made you decide to want to be a self-publisher? What was it that, what were they trying, what turned you off, or what just made you go that direction?
That's an excellent question. And I, like I said, I had no idea what I was doing. So I went with a printing. Now it's several layers to this story, but I'll try to break it down in simplest form, because I had a printing company / publishing company that wanted to work with me, and they wanted to charge me $13 a book for me to purchase each book. I would have been paying $13 a book. So I didn't know any better, but in actuality, they were trying to rob me. So I had, like I said, I signed up for the class that was $1,000. There's another brother on Instagram at the time named Derek Grace, and he at that time had a $299 consultation. So I think it was for an hour, for a half an hour. And in the first few minutes of me talking to him, he put me in contact with his printing company and explained the numbers to me. And that's when I realized that the printing company that I was working with, printing company slash publishing company that I was working with, wanted to take it, was taking advantage of me. So I didn't sign any paperwork with them that locked me in. So I was able to tell them, I don't want to work with you guys anymore because of what they were trying to do. If I was buying a book for $13, how much would I have to sell it for? It just didn't make any sense. But this was me not knowing the business side of it. So now come to find out that publishing companies, when they want to work with you, they're going to find you. Me running down publishing companies and signing contracts and paying them monthly fees is you getting scammed. If you get an agent and your agent gets you a publishing deal, then that's a different story. But I speak to a lot of authors, and a lot of them have gone the route of paying publishing companies to put their work out, and all they're doing is paying these companies monthly, and the company is not doing anything for them. So I'm not saying that I would never sign up with a publishing company, but at this point in time, I might as well push my own work, put my own work out there. I learned the business. I do my own distribution. A lot of authors make the mistake of creating the book, which is a huge thing. You finish writing, you create it, you put it on Amazon, and that's it. But there's a whole marketing side. Every time that you come out, you have to promote your work. And a lot of authors are not familiar with that side of it. So now my books aren't even on Amazon. And this, going back to the Derek Grace conversation, is Amazon wanted 60% of your book profits. So if you look on YouTube and you hear videos, you have influencers telling writers that, on the majority of writers get $3 a book. On the high end is $4 a book. And I'm looking at it like I'm getting $17 a book with doing it myself. Now, it will take me longer to get out there, but with the amount of authors that are on Amazon, nobody's looking on Amazon for Kevin Blaize yet. They don't know me like that. They know Bravo Walters. They know Michelle Obama. They know, popular figures to go and look for them on Amazon, but they don't know me yet. So not saying that I would never go on Amazon or I would never deal with a publishing company, but the numbers have to make sense.
It has to make
And
sense.
I like to own all my work. It's very, very important that you don't sign these contracts. You own your work. When I go into the schools and I talk to the students, I stress to them about ownership. Like, I'll give you an example. If I put my series, Dogs of the Wild, on Spotify, Spotify can now use any character in my book. They can make a branch off character. They could do anything they want with my characters, even to make an animated movie. And they don't have to pay me anything, because if you didn't read the fine print, you don't realize that that's what you agree to in their terms of agreement.
They
So
own it in perpetuity. They own it.
they own it. You can still do what you have to do and make your profit, but they can do what they want to do
Right.
with your work and make their profit. Spotify is like that. Allure is like that. Chat GPT is another one. When it comes to creative writing, I go into the schools. I tell the students that if you put your work in, excuse me, into Chat GPT, you can't copyright it. And a lot of educators are telling the youngsters, just put your stuff in Chat GPT, let it write it for you. No, you can't. Your idea would get stolen, would get taken, and you don't own it. So you have to learn the business side of it. And I think that was a great thing I did in actually learning the business side of it.
Well, God moved you. He moved your feet right, because you did. It's like a lot of music artists, right? They just want to do the music side of it and not learn the business side of it.
Right.
And the business side is what kind of burns out their inspiration and wanting to do music. So the Lord kind of guided your feet and said, "Now we're going to do this right. We're going to get you to know the business and the numbers. It has
Definitely.
to make sense." Let me ask you this: with the books that you have written, right? With the Getting the Homes, the Dogs of the Wild, and Is Your Son Ready to Leave Home? What is the most pride that you take in yourself about your books?
The most pride that I take in myself about my books. Um, I, I I'm gonna have to go with again my passion, which is the fictional writing, and because it's much deeper than my books now, which I didn't realize when I first started writing. I had no idea I would be on this journey, but going and talking to the students in school and letting them know that they can do this kind of work as well is a badge that I wear with honor, because you have Shrek, Little Mermaid, Black Panther. They were all books before they turned into mega movies. A lot of the students don't realize that those were books first. They don't realize that their idea that's in their head can be life changing. So now when they see me, Kevin Blaize comes to their class, and I'm telling them that my end goal is to get to an animated movie, just like Shrek, just like Little Mermaid. Now they're saying, wait a minute, if he can do it, I can do it. Its
Mm.
representation is very, very important. I didn't meet any authors growing up. I didn't meet any authors until I started going out to events with my books. Standing up on the street corner selling my books is when I started meeting authors. And the same trend is continuing today. These students don't realize that they can write books, but we're big consumers when these books turn into movies. We buy the t-shirts, we buy the popcorn, we buy the movie tickets, we buy the sneakers. Like, um, you remember Cars that came out some years ago? It was a
Yeah.
franchise, Cars. Uh, Shrek is a $4 billion franchise. It's worth
Harry
$4 billion.
Potter.
And
Harry Potter.
Harry Potter. If I show you the original Shrek book cover, you're gonna be like, wait a minute. And this is worth over 4 billion. They're about to release Shrek 5 this year. So now the students have another option and an opportunity available to them, because I don't know if you've been paying attention what's been going on. There's been a lot of backlash because of IPs that are being remade, and the people are like, we're tired of this. Like, give
Right.
us some new stuff. But if the students don't know that that idea that they sat on can be turned into the Shrek, they're not going to know that they can do it. And I take that very, very seriously. I want these students to know that you can do this work just like anybody else can.
That's a beautiful thing. It doesn't have to be, because when you look at the numbers of the people that get into the NBA, it's astronomical, my man.
Right.
When you look at how many people try to get into those combines and try, to get drafted, even in the NFL, all of these different sports, the numbers are astronomical. And what happens to those people that don't make it?
Right.
Here's the thing, man. How did you come up with a trilogy, my G? How did you come up with Dogs in the Wild trilogy? How did that inspiration come to Mr. Kevin Blaize?
Well, I'm not really a dog lover per se. Like, I would like my dog. Like let's say you have a dog. I'm not coming up to your dog like, oh, can I pet him? Oh, he's so cute. I wouldn't do that. My dog, I would have a special relationship with my dog. So my dog was the inspiration. If you look on the back cover of Dogs of the Wild, down in the corner was the last Rottweiler that I had, named Shadow. So out in Pennsylvania, everybody was bringing their dog to breed with him because he was a monster. His uncle is actually the biggest Rottweiler I've ever seen in my life. One of the last batches of puppies that he had with a female, they had 18, and they were walking down. They were walking down behind down the road behind the mother one day, and it was just ridiculous. But I've always had Rottweilers from since I was a young kid in New York. I've had Rottweilers. So I'm sitting out in my backyard in Pennsylvania, an idea just came to me, and then I started thinking of animals that are out there. I've always been fascinated by wolves, because Dogs of the Wild is actually wolves battling dogs for rulership over a mystical forest. So it's not just dogs. I have gorillas, I have wolves, I have tigers, I have eagles, beavers. I have all kind of different animals in there. And it's actually just the environment that I was in, that I had my Rottweiler, I was in my yard, and the idea came to me. And once I started writing, I couldn't stop.
That's a beautiful thing. That's a beautiful thing. So how do you get? I know you mentioned it a little bit earlier, but how does Kevin Blaize get into his writing zone? Like, what do you do? Do you set up how do you set up the aura in the atmosphere for you to get into that zone of writing? Dogs in the Wild, or writing. Is your child ready to leave home? How do you get into the zone of doing that?
Oh, that's dope, because there's different types of writers. There's the planster, which is the kind of writer that plans everything out, that plots everything out. There's the panster, which just goes off of the whim, and then there's the combination of sometimes you plan, sometimes you go off of the whim. I am the go off of the whim. You know, I just when I what you have to do though, because a lot of people tell me that they have ideas and that they want to write a book, and that then they also tell me their idea, which I tell them, you know, don't tell people your idea because somebody will take it. I have so many of my own ideas, so I don't want their ideas, but it's a doggy world out. It's a doggy dog world out there. IPs, ideas, original ideas are gold right now. So if you have one, be careful of who you share it with, because that person may share it with somebody else who takes your idea and runs with it. But that's another topic. But um, I train myself to be disciplined when I'm in writing mode. When I if I say, all right, I'm going to start at 7 in the morning and I'm going to go for this amount of time, you have to do that, because the discipline is gonna show up when the motivation isn't there. You know, so
Mm.
you have to set. You have Me personally, I like to set a schedule. When I say, all right, I'm gonna hit it, and I'm gonna write. And then there's other times when I just start writing because an idea comes to me, or I text myself an idea so that I don't forget it. But the discipline is the most important thing. I tell all aspiring authors that a page a day is over 300 pages at the end of the year. If you do 3 pages a day, that's over 1,000 pages at the end of the year. So it's more discipline when you want to get it done. I think the numbers are only 3% of people who say they're going to write a book actually finish it. You know, so you're in a very unique class of people when you do actually finish that book.
Wow. Let me ask you a question. This is another personal question. Did you ever think that you would be called an author?
No way. No way, man. And what's wild is when people ask for my autograph to sign my books that they've just purchased. First, you're asking for something that I created from my mind. You're asking me to purchase it, and then you're asking me to sign it. Like it's the wildest thing ever, man. Like I've signed so many books, and I still get a kick out of it that people are actually asking for my signature. You know, it's a little surreal because I never had that in the plans at all, that I would be writing, that I'll be selling books, that I'll be trying to get to an animated movie, that I'll be going in front of classes to speak to students. You know, I I
You thought you were
I
gonna be a football player?
well, that I knew at a young age I wasn't gonna do that either. I was one of the ones that wasn't fooling myself.
Right, right.
You know. But I uh I tell students all the time that you don't have to be perfect. Like, my grammar is not perfect at all. My grammar is actually horrible. And just because you have bad grammar doesn't mean that you can't tell a story. You partner with an editor. The editor corrects your grammar. I can't draw. My fictional books have excellent drawings in them. You partnered with an illustrator. The illustrator gets your drawing out there. So it's important for them to understand that you don't have to be perfect. I'm not perfect. I have trouble sometimes when I'm spelling words. Like, um Chrome is my best friend because I know how to spell this word, and when I go to spell it, I start stumbling. So I'm an author. I have several books out, and I still go through this, and I relay this message to the students that you don't have to be perfect, man. It's if you can't speak properly, you can work on those things. You can work on your speech, because you will be speaking a lot when you have a book and you put it out there. You're going to be speaking a lot to people. You're going to be doing podcasts. You're going to be doing presentations, speeches, like, so you can work on these things. You don't have to be perfect.
Well, thank you for blessing us with your presence, because I know you've done a lot of podcasts. So let me ask you this: what is something that surprised you about this industry and slash journey?
Uh, that's a good one. The Something that surprised me was people not realizing the importance of creative writing. You know, not knowing that that it's an industry that we can tap into. You know, it's a $285 billion industry.
Wow.
And when I talk to educators, it's so difficult for them to see the vision of getting students tapped into that market. They have a gentleman by the name of Ryan Coogler who just did this movie Sinners the other day,
Right, right.
and he was able to hire his whole production team. You know, he was able to have last final say on the last cuts. So when you're right, he created the story Sinners, like he wrote it and directed it. So you create so many opportunities for others around you, others in the industry, when you can creatively write, and it's being overlooked. Like it's something that we live in a society that is a very follow what the other person is doing. So in order for the educators to really understand that this is a shift that's happening, they have to see other educators doing it, because they're not just going to ups and say, okay, I'm going to do it on my own, especially if they've never created anything on their own. I have so many teachers come up to me after I've done a session in their class, and they tell me, how do you handle people not liking your work? Or I have this painting that I want to put out, but I'm so scared because I don't want people to reject it. And I'm telling them that, you you're supposed to be leading these students. How do you have no confidence in yourself, or how are you afraid to hear no? And you're supposed to be showing these students how to be leaders. So it's a lot of things that come into play that I didn't expect, that I didn't know happened until I got into the field.
Okay. Got a few more questions before we wrap this up. What advice would you give an inspiring author?
Oh, okay. I think we might have touched on that already. I tell them, the dedication, a
Hmm.
page a day. If they have a hard time finding time, leave the phone out the bathroom and bring the notepad and paper into the bathroom. Instead of scrolling for 10 minutes, you could be writing for 10 minutes. Also reading too. A lot of people say they don't have a lot of time to read. Leave the phone out the bathroom and bring the phone into the bathroom. You get a lot accomplished in the 10 minutes in the bathroom, but a page a day.
Word, word. Let me ask you this. Um, if you could tell people one thing, if you could tell them one thing, right? Um, you're in these classes, you're out here in these forums, talking to students, talking to teachers. If you could tell them one thing, what would that one thing be?
If I could tell them one thing.
One thing.
Mhm.
You got 30 seconds, my G. You got one thing to say. What would that one thing be? Like, if I know that we have a whole plethora of things that we want to, and a lot of fluff. If you had one thing, what would you say is the most important thing that you would tell them?
I would say get around people that have done what you're trying to do. Um, networking is networking is key. You staying. There was a song a few years back about no new friends. That's the exact opposite of how this world works. You want to get around people that are where you're trying to be, or at least on the same journey as you, so that you're not being held back by dead weight.
Mm,
I think it's very, very important, man. They don't even have to be your friends, but you need new associates. You need to network.
okay. Don't be afraid to speak to people. Don't be afraid to introduce yourself.
Yeah,
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 don't be afraid, because again, you can be, there's certain doors that you need to open,
yeah.
and by you not taking that moment to go out into the world to talk to these people, you're potentially leaving doors closed that would potentially help you to where you need to be.
And I think it's important for our youngsters to understand that. They have to understand that networking is going to open doors that your hard work and your skill wouldn't be able to open.
Okay. So let me ask you this. Tell us one thing that surprised you about being an author.
One thing that surprised me about being an author. Hmm. One thing that surprised me about being an author. That's a good one.
Take your time, my G. Take your time. Bless you.
Thank you, thank you. Yeah, I'm getting over the flu. I was down bad last week, so I'm getting over it now. But one thing that surprised me about being an author, the average author only sells 500 books in their lifetime.
Wow.
Yeah, and getting into the business, I realize why now, because you are your own machine, like you are your own business. So um, you have a lot of great authors that have, like I said, they put their work on Amazon, and nobody buys their book because they don't know they don't know anything about the author. The author hasn't spent any money on ads or anything, hasn't promoted their book. So now they're thinking that maybe this industry isn't for me. Meanwhile, this author is an amazing author. I'll tell you, there's a young lady out of Jamaica. Her name is Anicia Smith, and I used to follow her on Instagram for her movie reviews. And I don't even remember how I discovered her, but I took a chance. I seen that she was an author, and I purchased her book, and it's an amazing book. Anicia Smith is her name. Like, we don't know of these young new authors. So when people ask me, who inspired me, I don't even talk about the books that I used to read. I talk about the new authors, Khadijah Grant, Anicia Smith. These are authors that are amazing, and they're not as popular out there. Like the big boys, the tokens, they have billion-dollar movies made with their work already. They don't need any more exposure. I don't need to talk
Right.
about them, but the 500 books
Wow.
um is the average author sells in their lifetime. It's not a lot. That's not a lot of books.
All right. So we got two questions. I think you answered one of them when we're going to do it. But here's the first question again from Anthony T. Biz. He says, what have you found to be the biggest obstacle when it comes to splitting time between writing, family, and faith?
That's an excellent question. Luckily for me, my children are older, you know, um, so they know that when I'm not as home, not home as much as I used to be, it's because I'm trying to set up this legacy for them. Like, I don't even see me reaping the fruits of my labor while I'm here. I more see it that it's something that they're going to be able to reap the benefits of, and their children are going to be able to reap the benefits of. So I also was hitting the pavement a lot, selling my books to help my two oldest pay for their college. So the sales that I was making for my books, I was out selling 50 books a week, and that was going towards their college so that they could get out of college without any loans, and it was a beautiful thing. It was a blessing of the Lord for me to be able to do that. Um, but you something is gonna have to sacrifice when you're trying to make it. A lot of times it's family. Me and my wife have been together since 1997, so we're not going anywhere. So, and she understands what it is that we're trying to do. So something is gonna have to sacrifice when you're trying to make it to the next level. So I if my family was a young family, I don't think I'd be able to do it the way that I'm doing it now. But blessed being that they're older, I'm able to not be home as much and put more work into getting out there, networking, and putting time into the book. So something is gonna sacrifice, and in a lot of famous people, they speak about the time with the family that sacrifices. More often than not, it is the time with the family that sacrifices. But I didn't get writing until I was a little more up there in age. So thankfully, I didn't have to go through that as far as missing out on time with my family because of that.
Okay. We got one last question. It is, and I think you answered this already, but it says, what is, what it difficult to get published? Was it difficult to get published?
It was extremely difficult the first time around because I had no idea what I was doing. But in I finished book one in 2012. I didn't publish it until I didn't get it copywritten until 2018, and I didn't launch it until 2021. And all of that was trial and error. You know, your printing company, your editor, your funny story is, I have locks. I cut it so it's a little lower now. I'm not sure. I'm sitting in my car because I was supposed to be in. I got delayed, so I wasn't able to get to the spot I was supposed to get to. But uh, the lady that washes my hair, she's been doing my hair for years now. When I got my very first proof of book one in my series, I went with her to the hairdresser for her to see the book. And I sat down in her chair, and I'm excited. I'm like, this is the proof of my book. Now it's a big book. I think it was like 11 by 15 or something along those lines. So that was why they were charging me $13, but I didn't know any better. But she looks at the cover and she goes, if I didn't know you, I wouldn't buy that. And I needed that. I needed somebody to be honest with me, tell me that it didn't look that good, because even though I read a lot, I had in my mindset that you don't judge a book by its cover, and it's totally false. When it comes to books and getting your work out there, they definitely judge a book by its cover. So, excuse me, and her doing that to me, it made me know that I had to step my game up, so that you can't tell if my book standing next to a published book that my book is self-published. So
Mm.
you have to step your
Scared
game up.
money don't make money.
Right. You have to invest into your brand. You have to invest into your books,
Absolutely.
and you can't shortchange it. Like, I've had people that have asked me, do I really need an editor? And I tell them, if you plan on taking it serious, you better pay for an editor. You know,
How much does an editor typically cost?
it depends on the size of the book,
Okay.
how fast you want the book done. Most editors have different packages. I tend to go for the um, for the top package, even though I don't feel I need plot building and so forth. Somebody may have an idea that you didn't think of. So even though I
Right.
don't think that I need it, I still go that route. Like in book two in my series, Dogs of the Wild, I have a character with a speech impediment, and he stutters. So I actually wrote out the character stuttering. It's one of the main characters in the book. And my editor was able to, because the way I sent it to her, it would have been a turnoff to the reader to read it that way. So she did it in a way that you can it actually flows
Understand. Got you.
really, yeah, really well with the story. So, editors are
You
extremely,
get what you
extremely
pay
important.
for. You get what you pay for.
Right.
So we have another question from Sophisticated Jerk. He says, how long does it typically take to write a book? Now, I know that varies, but I guess you could speak from your personal experiences and things of that nature.
Right. It does vary. It depends on what kind of book you're writing. Um, I finished book one, Dogs of the Wild, in 2012. And the way I was able to do it, I was working construction at the time, and I had started the book. So I don't remember exactly how many chapters I was in, but I got laid off from work, and I said, I'm not going back to work until I finish this book. And 6 weeks later, I had, um, I had the book finished, and I was getting up 6 in the morning, and I was going to bed 2 in the morning. But it's a little easier now because there are apps that you can speak into, and it types it out for you. Me personally, I still like to write and then read it into the app. But there are people that, instead of writing or typing, they speak it into the app, and then it types it out for you. And then you still have to get it edited, of course, because the speech may not pick up properly. But everything varies on the amount of time that you're willing to invest. But it is time that you have to invest. Like, there's a gentleman that I can't remember his name. I know his face, but he says, the hours before 9 to 5 and after 5 is when you're building your empire. So you have to just put in the work.
All right, man. So before we get out of here, man, first of all, let me say I appreciate you taking your time out to bless me, man, to bless me with this interview. Thank you so much. Is there anything that we left out? Is there anything that you would want the people to know? We're going to shout your website out, name of your books. But besides that, is there
Uh,
any?
I would like to thank you for taking the time out. You know, I really appreciate that. I know time is very valuable. I would just say if anybody's listening, if they're connected with any principals or superintendents, to let them know that we have something unique here. Not only do we have the series, we have the creative writing course where I teach the students the components. It's an 8-week course, once a week, and I teach the components of creative writing, but I also teach you how to protect your work. Copyrights, trademarks. I am trademarked. My work is trademarked. NDAs, famous litigations that people went through, domain names that are available, like Peter Pan is available for you to use. Mickey Mouse, Superman is becoming available. Like, these are things that our students need to learn, especially as the world gets smaller. Marketing, everywhere that I go, I wear my logo. A lot of us in the
Put that
in
closer. Put that closer. Let me blow you up, brother. Let me blow you up so we can see it.
yeah,
Hold on. Hold on. Go ahead. There we
yeah,
go.
yeah, it's my logo. Sorry, it's dark on my end. Let me see if
No,
I can
no,
put
no.
my.
It's all good. There you
There we
go.
go. All right,
Move it a little bit to your right. There you go. Dogs of
right,
the Wild, the trilogy.
right.
There you
So
go.
everywhere that I go, I show up with my logo because I want the students to understand branding. You know, Wu-Tang Clan, a famous hip hop group from the '90s. Just depending on your audience age, some may know who they are, some may not. But they have a Wu-Tang logo that was making them $25 million a year, just the logo alone. So now a student that is interested in music can say, wait a minute, it's not just music that I'm doing. I can
Mm-hmm.
actually be a whole brand. So very, very important that I show up and have these things going. But the introduction to creative writing course is very, very powerful, and the students will benefit from it. So,
And you know,
resources, networking, just spread the word that I'm here and we're doing some really, really dope things. Thank the Lord.
so here's the thing, guys. One, let me say this: that creative writing course is so important. And I say why it's important because people that are being bullied, people are suffering, people that are not articulating what they're going through verbally can actually put it on paper and actually get it out. They don't have to live with it, right? So that creative writing course is very important. So if anyone is interested in it, um, is there a way they can get in contact with you, or should they get in contact with me and I'll drop it off to you?
Yeah, either way is fine.
Okay,
Either
so
way is fine.
guys, get in contact with me at bolotv16@gmail.com. If you know any principals, any teachers, doesn't matter where they are in America, no
Yeah.
matter where they are, if you know anybody, get to bolotv16@gmail.com and I'll get it to this brother here, Mr. Kevin Blaize, author, and we'll see what we can do. So I'm gonna need 30% of every book. I'm only joking. But man, listen, man, I can't thank you enough for taking your time out, for being here with us, man. And thank you. This is Kevin Blaize, everybody. Mr. Kevin Blaize, author, right? Where can you get his books? You can get his books at dogsofthewild.com. And the name of his books are Is Your Son Ready to Leave Home? That's coming soon. Blacks in America, 18 to 48 years old and still no home. And the website you can go, his other website is www.1848.com. All right. Let's support, because we support nonsense and garbage all the time. And we talk about what's important, man. What you ingest is what you're going to be. We have to understand that if you eat garbage, then your body is going to treat you like garbage, right?
Right.
So let's start ingesting these things for our children. Let's start, right? Let's start letting these children know that it's not just basketball, rap, selling drugs, or football that they can get into.
Yeah.
Writing, creative writing, and authorship. They can get into these things. It's not hard to do.
Yeah.
Yes, it takes work, but it's not impossible to do this. It's not impossible. So
Yeah. And
Let
we need to shift the narrative too. Like we don't only write power and empire. You
right.
know, Ice Cube is a very, I think Ice Cube is the GOAT with with the transformation he did from NWA to Friday to the kids movies that he did, you know, and the kids movies are where it's at, because as opposed to two people going to see a movie on a date, you bring in a family of 4 or 5 to come and watch the movie, you know. So
Good
let's
point.
not let our students, our children get boxed into this run of the mill gang banging stories and hood stories. Like, let's really, really show their creativity.
And you know what? I had this. They call me. You know, my cousin has a barbershop, and they call me the Uncle Ruckus in the barbershop because I tell them, listen, when I go to a movie, I want to be whisked away. You
Hmm.
know what I'm saying? I'm paying. You know, you take a family, it's like taking out a damn loan.
Right,
You know, when you take these kids to the movies, you know. So I don't want to go to the movies and see what happens in real life on a 50-foot screen.
right.
You know, I want to see things that, you know, that takes me away, that taps me out of what's going on in the real world right now. You know what I mean?
And
So
that's what you're supposed to creative writers are supposed to do that. Like, it's when I'm pushing my book, I'm pushing the experience. Like, you're able to place yourself inside the book and forget everything that's going on around you in the real world. That's the kind of writing our youngsters need to know that they can do.
absolutely. Well, brother, guys, let's thank Mr. Kevin Blaize for being
Thank
here with
you.
us today. Man, thank you so much.
Thank you, bro. I appreciate you taking the time again.
Nah, man, you know, thank you for taking the time. Hang out for a second. We're going to end the show. Guys, again, you can go to his website, dogsofthewild.com or 1848.com. Check his books out. If you know any principals, teachers, any forums that want to get into creative writing, anything dealing with authorship and dealing with authors, get in contact with me, bolotv@gmail.com, and we will get this information to him. Or you can call us at the Village Hotline, 347-394-5954. Leave a message. All right. You guys have a blessed day. Thank you for tuning in. Let's support this brother. Let's get his information out there. These kids, they need more inspiration to know that they can do it. Let's talk about it. There are a lot of children suffering mental illness. So let's deal with it. Thank you so much, my G. And look forward to doing more interviews with you.
Yeah, I
Love you.
appreciate it. Love you too, bro.
Peace.